poor because it doesn't allow people to really join in. So I was also working on a similar project, 15 um, um, agripreneurs across Africa. The
Oh,
project
nice.
is just about starting. I'll be willing to really collaborate on this with you, right?
Oh,
So, but
fantastic.
yes, yeah.
Fantastic, because there are lots of persons that so far that I've interviewed are really young people doing very well within the space, having turnovers of like half a billion, quarter a billion, over a billion, and I'm like, okay, so why is this not in the media? Everybody's sort of really focused on technology. I have no problem with technology personally. I think that technology in itself is an enabler, right? It just helps in terms of enhancing whatever it is that you're already doing. And so we should have more people seeing that this is also something that um, that can be done with agriculture. And I like to believe that because of the human capital resource that we have in this country, and also like the vast arable land that we have no business, suffering from food insecurity. We have no business with that. So for me, I just want to see how I can push this positive narrative and just help sort of create like a reorientation, particularly for young people. So typically that's why I do what I do. But all the same, thank you so much for also doing your bit of it. I see that you've been within the space for like a very long time, and that's really commendable. That's really, really commendable.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And so I will just sort of read out your bio, and then we start out the conversation. Start out the conversation. So let me just read out your bio. Okay. Fantastic. New here. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on yet another amazing episode of the podcast. And today I have a phenomenal guest with me here in the studio. He's no other than Mr. Ade Tiloye Continental. I'm just very intrigued by your name, Continental. I think that's something you're going to touch a bit on because, like, you're the first person I'm seeing bearing Continental as a name. I believe there should maybe be a story around that, but I believe you'd also sort of touch on it as we proceed in the conversation. Mr. Adetoloye is a visionary agro-business leader dedicated to transforming Africa's food system through innovation, policy advocacy, strategic partnership. Over a decade of experience within the food system sector, particularly in post-harvest system and sustainable agricultural development. He has been at the forefront of reducing food losses, improving supply chain efficiency, and fostering resilience in Africa's agricultural sector. As the founder of Post Harvest Africa, Adetoloye leads an organization that delivers cutting edge solutions in storage technology, cold chain logistic, capacity building, and policy advisory services. He works His work has empowered countless agripreneurs, strengthened food security, and enhanced the profitability of the agricultural enterprise across the continent of Africa. In addition to his role at the Post Harvest Africa, he is the executive secretary and CEO of the Produce Export Development Alliance, where he champions policy reform and export growth to position Africa agricultural products competitively in the global market. His leadership extends to collaboration with the government, NGO, private sector, stakeholders, all aimed at fostering a more resilient and innovative agribusiness landscape. Driven by the vision of nourishing over 100 million Africans by 2050, Adetoloye is committed to making agriculture a cornerstone of Africa's economic prosperity, ensuring that post-harvest losses are minimized and agricultural value chain are optimized for maximum impact. So with this round of applause, guys, welcome Mr. Adetoloye Continental. How are you doing today, sir?
I am very well. I'm very awesome. Thank you so much for having me on this network. It's really, wonderful work that you are doing here. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
Thank you. And so, as we proceed into the conversation, if you don't mind, just sort of share with us your journey within the agricultural space and why exactly you chose to sort of focus in the post-harvest, losses area within agriculture. Because there could have been different areas you could have chosen to, focus on. But why exactly post-harvest losses?
That's a very interesting question, and I don't think I'll be able to get to that without really proving some background, as to
Okay.
this, why does it happen. So, my grandfather was one of the biggest pig farmers, in Lagos at the time. I'd usually always taken, the interest into agriculture from him. Fast forward a few years, I was getting into the Obafemi Awolowo University. I got into food science and technology. It was really quite related. At that time, I was really the fundamental reason for this was because I wanted to find a way to keep food alive, like make food, a living thing, not just something that is really that is dead that would always affect our bodies. So I was very interested in food. I think that food and agriculture are one and the same.
Yeah.
And it's usually always one end of a stick while the other one's on the other end. So um I was fast forward my fourth year, I was first student for the Obafemi Awolowo University to be granted 4 acres of land for commercial purposes, where I started to grow crops. Well, of course, the first 2 seasons obviously was a failure. However, the third one, was was massive success, and you know it was really very good. We grew cucumbers. We harvested tons of it, and we really tried to sold merchants from everywhere. At that time I went to the Obafemi Awolowo University, and merchants from everywhere, from Ife, from neighboring towns, came over to the farm to really offtake much of these cucumbers. I found out that agriculture was a very viable sector quite early, and I think that that experience really marked my mind, in the sense that I mean, much of much of the people that I knew, much of my colleagues, even ones in the faculty of agriculture, never really take to the viability of agriculture. But I found out early, and I think that's one of the major reasons why we stayed. Um, Fast forward a few years, I relocated to Jos in 2016. When I was in Jos, something miraculous really happened. Was I saw that Nigeria could actually really produce lots of, and we still actually currently do a lot of crops, but we never seen them on cities in Lagos or anywhere. We grow broccolis in Nigeria, we grow cauliflowers in Nigeria, we grow strawberries in Nigeria, we grow all these fantastic produce. However, you don't see them mainstream in Nigeria. Why? What was the problem? Naively, to me, I thought, okay, maybe we need to boost production, and then I got into farming. I At that time I owned a 8.6 hectare farm in Jos, with two big greenhouses. As at the time, when I went to Jos in 2016 on national service, and almost a year after that was in late 2017. I had this farm and the greenhouse. So it was really I really scaled very fast. My major market was in Lagos at the time, of course, because I came here from here, and much of my contacts were obviously from Lagos. However, something dramatic happened. We got to time of harvest. We were harvesting. Of course, we needed a logistics service provider partner to actually help us, fulfill this order to our customers in Lagos. And so we hired a truck. I mean, the loading went well. Everything was great, and all of those kind of things. And it was 22 hours trip, via road from Jos to Lagos. And
Mm.
upon arrival in Lagos, we literally drove straight to the dunghill in Ojota. Right. Every of the produce was bad on arrival. So this was months of work, right? Quashed in less than 24 hours. And, I started to investigate the challenge, right? And I found out that we needed to really, our problem, we don't have a food production problem in Nigeria. we actually have a food distribution problem, and that's one of the reasons why food is scarce, right? The entire idea was that during the journey there were so many things that were happening to the crops. They were obviously changing, they were expiring, a lot of things. And um I realized that I wasn't the only person who had this problem. Several countless farmers, aggregators, middlemen, they all face these challenges. I mean, Africa generally, we lose about $4 billion to post harvest loss every year, right? And sometimes it even
Yeah.
get worse. So I decided, okay, what I was going to do was that I was going to, change my business model slightly, to actually accommodate this, because it wasn't viable to actually have produced and then not be able to sell. So we decided to go into evolve into more of a post harvest logistics handling company, where so now what I mean is that we do a number of things. We go to farms with our cooling vans and trucks and be able to direct the packaging, the loading, and obviously the eventual delivery. So we're more of a logistics service provider for the agricultural landscape. We move produce on behalf of large retailers and supermarkets, and processors across the country. So they just call and say, "Hey, Ade, we need to release your truck. We need you to go to Adama for us to pick up, this temperature sensitive produce. We need you to move enzymes, for us." And traveling across the country, I've seen that Nigerians are very, very industrious people. We're very entrepreneurial. We really actually take for granted our entrepreneurial capacity, in this country. It's not just throw our hands in the air and say nothing's working, so we'll not do anything. No, we Nigerians do something. The only challenge is that you're not able to actually see the result of what we're doing. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're trying to fix with Post Harvest Africa is that we're trying to ensure that the beautiful work that has been done for 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, 12 months, does not just come to waste in a few short days, right? We're providing proper packaging that would actually help farmers and farmers cooperatives. We're providing logistics service offerings that would actually help them to translate it to markets, and food handling services too, and also capacity building and training, which is very important. A farmer needs to know that he is the most important person in the entire value chain, and whatever he does or does not do at certain times will really affect, the consumer at the end of the day. And that's really essentially more of a background story into why Post Harvest Africa and problem that we're trying to solve.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Good to hear that. Interestingly, I also served in Just as well, but that was somewhat around late 17 into 2018.
Oh,
And
I see.
I had seen like we had the capacity to grow a lot of vegetables, particularly in Plato, a lot of vegetables, and I was just like, and even that incident you mentioned about the losses when you moved your products from Plateau to Lagos, because I had tried to like send stuff to my family down in Lagos, potato, I think Irish
Yeah,
potato, tomato, and stuff, because those kinds of things are really really affordable
yeah,
there.
yes, yes.
Upon
You're very good.
arrival, it was like bad. They could not do nothing with those things. The only thing that was useful, I think they have like kidney beans there. That was the only thing that was useful. Every other thing was bad, like totally bad. And I was just like, ah.
Yeah,
Well, I
y-
resonate strongly with what you had mentioned. So yeah. So let's my very
yeah.
my next question to you at this time is, from your own experience, what are like the biggest post harvest challenges do farmers and agricultural preneurs face today?
Yeah, so in my experience, right, the most important challenge that they face is actually the knowledge gap challenge. And
Mm, wow.
this is a very big problem, because if we understand the principles, right, in reducing food losses, we'll be very innovative about the practices, right? So the practices are can change, right? You
Yeah.
can choose to use this packaging instead of that packaging. But if you understand the principle behind why actually food would actually be lost across the value chain, then you will actually realize that, oh yeah, I need to understand this before I do that. So I say that the most important challenge is really the knowledge gap challenge, right? And that's one thing that we're really actively looking to deliver. So for instance, and I will just really be I'll just give you an instance, right? Just one,
Okay.
so we don't take so much time. But okay, so for instance, I'll take one critical control point, which is loading and off unloading, right?
Mm,
And just that part. No, I mean there are several parts here, but that part. Now, um, you realize that the way we typically have done it in Nigeria is that we do it haphazardly. We mix
yes.
products of different. Just 1 second.
Guys, I hope that you're getting value from the conversation already.
So
Okay.
sorry, I'm here. So we actually mix products of several different types of species with each other, and that can itself be a major challenge when it comes to how it's and then sometimes we put heavy items on top of light items, right?
Yeah.
That can contribute to
True.
right? And
True.
then another thing you will get to realize is that so even when you actually load it properly, right? The process of
Yeah.
unloading. So, for instance,
Yes.
I read them very well, and then the process of offloading. That is, so sometimes the people offloading for you would actually offload lighter items, right? And in
Yeah.
the process of offloading the lighter items, they are also putting up the heavy items on it. So
Yeah. The second.
it's
Yeah.
a it's the wild west here, and we need to find a way to be able to curtail some of those things. I think the knowledge gap is the most significant gap that needs to actually be fixed.
Oh, okay. Huh. That's really interesting. I never would have imagined that that would like be the first, challenge that you'd mention. But from your analogy, it totally resonates. Uh, okay, fine. So, how much of food is being lost in terms of like from harvest and at the market as well? And what has this impact done on food security and agribusiness profitability?
Oh, when it comes to food loss, that's a very interesting question. So, food loss is major, right? Is in fact one of the reasons why food prices are escalating across the country is because we actually lose food. It's more expensive now to grow anything than it is, that has ever been before now. And then, it is very challenging. We lose more than $4 billion in across Africa every year
Yeah.
on for food loss challenges, and then it's really a problem across across Africa. Nigeria alone, I mean, it depends on the region, however, but the rates are very alarming. If we can cut that down by an extra 30%, we'll see food prices drop dramatically. What's the point of, I mean, for instance, this cost of production of like a kilo of tomatoes was 100 naira, before now.
Yeah.
And now the cost of production is now 400 naira now. That's because
Yeah.
inputs have skyrocketed. And imagine losing more than 50% of that. That means that at the end of the day, at point of sale, that tomato is going to be like about,
Yeah.
it needs to be sold at least minimum 800 naira for that person to even make a profit, because you've lost another extra 400 naira just to waste. It's really is it, and it's exponential.
Wow. That's really serious. Really, really serious. Hmm. Wow. Okay. So my very next question to you is, from your observation and years of
Yeah.
practice, what would you say are like the common mistakes that farmers or agripreneur make that sort of contribute to this food losses or post harvest losses?
Well, so the major common mistakes are really or let me say the major is really in terms of pre-cooling, right? In
Okay.
terms of harvesting and pre-cooling methods, so for instance, much of us don't know that um, our food is still alive, right? Our foods are still
Oh,
respiring. They're still alive. That's one of the major reasons why they even give nutrients to our bodies is that they're living things too. Um,
wow.
and then when you actually harvest them, there's literally this shock that actually happens with the plants, whether it's a leafy greens, it's a headed vegetable, it's a fruit or whatever. And then that shock comes with its own effects. It either increases the rate of respiration or actually increases the temperatures that builds around the product, etc. Now the idea is that we should actually, the best practice is upon harvest, there should be something called pre-cooling. That is, the removal of the field heat that accompanying the harvest process. Now, what has happened is that we actually just, go straight to harvest, to packaging, and then to shipment mostly. All right, but there should be that period of pre-cooling, of waiting for the produce to cool, right? That significantly helps. And then another point is really the when you are considering temperature and relative humidity. So there are
Yeah.
three major things that really affects fresh produce after harvest. Number one is temperature. Number two is relative humidity, and then the third is light. Different products react differently to light. Different products react differently to what's it called, to relative humidity, which is the amount of water in the air at that time. So do not harvest in the rain or all those types of different things. And then also, things like temperature. Considering the temperature, that's why we actually recommend the use of cooling bands. In when you're moving temperature sensitive product. But anyways, it's good to note that there are several stages, there are several processes. For us at Post Harvest Africa, we're trying to spread that word as much as possible. As much as we provide services, that would actually move this, we also want to be able to help people at there so they don't lose their months of work and everybody's not satisfied at the end of the day. Yeah.
Fantastic. So when you say that they're products that are temperature sensitive, can you make mention of a couple of them? Because in my head, I'm trying to think of, okay, tubers would not necessarily need that, but I'm thinking maybe possibly vegetables. So can you maybe mention a couple of this
Oh,
produce?
you'll be surprised that almost every product is actually sensitive, including your yams, right?
Are you serious?
Yeah, your yams are very, very temperature sensitive. I started with yams so that I can, give you an extreme, right? Your yams, your potatoes, they're all temperature sensitive. Again, if you look at it from the perspective of the fact that your produce is alive, then you realize that, and then there's this thing in science that says that with every 10 degrees rise in temperature, metabolic and enzymatic reactions increases by
Yes.
double. So let me just bring it down. The more temperature, the more the temperature, the more the rate of like decomposition, right? And so
Yeah.
the yams, you're advised to actually keep them at a cool, dry place in the house. Maybe sometimes some people in the households usually spread onions on the floor, that type of thing. Again, is all practice to increase airflow, to do all of those types of things. So it is very, very important to be able to get all of that, out of the way. So sorry. It's
No problem. Oh wow! I never would have thought about yam. Honestly, I never would have imagined because I feel like it's like a dry produce. So why would you sort of need to ensure that it has a certain temperature? Okay, we learn every day. So I've learned that today. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so my very next question to you is how can improved storage technology and cold chain logistic transform agribusiness in Nigeria and in Africa at large? How
so
can
yeah,
improved technology, yeah, you can go with
yeah.
that.
So improved technology is in fact, I dare say that we don't really so need too much of the digital technology to actually transform agriculture to get it to the place at least that it will be able to feed our population. I think that what we need is simple technology and When it comes to
Okay.
technology, the O was a technology at some point in time, right? So
Mm,
I'm just trying to, trying to give an idea of what type of technology that we actually need in, to transform that. I think we need to have a more robust cold chain infrastructural technology that is nodal, or modular, you know, um, cold storage facilities, that would help, when I say cold, sometimes we always think of in terms of fruits and vegetables necessarily. Yes,
yeah.
it's the bulk of it, but almost all produce actually need some form of like cold infrastructure in place. I'm not talking about the grains now, those are very, very important. Like, they also need, proper warehousing, infrastructure in place. So we need to invest in terms of technology, primarily in our storage infrastructures and in our logistics infrastructures. Those are the most important parts that we need to invest in. In terms of logistics, I cannot overstate this. We need to be able to invest in cold transportation. We also need to be able to invest in more food friendly types of transportation, not just a white van that cannot promote airflow or any of those types of things. We need to invest in more food type technology, even if it's not called logistics, but those are the things that we need, and those things are very heavy investment for the average farmer, right? So
Mm,
this cannot be left to the farms alone. I'm not sure that farmers are able to put in that necessary warehousing infrastructure in place. They're also not able to maybe own a van or a truck or a trailer. Now that's where private investment has to come in, to really support, because a lot of aggregators have, aggregators, farmers, marketers, middlemen. They actually suffer from these heavy losses, right? That's money going to waste, and
yeah.
you would want to see them properly done. But like you and I have established earlier, the marketing for the agricultural sector is really terrible, and this is a deterrent for most investors. Most investors have only heard about bad things happen in the agricultural space.
Yeah.
Uh, Not much have been said about when things are going well. I dare say that the agricultural infrastructure. I mean, industry in Nigeria is very broad, and we always think about agriculture in terms of farmers, and I think we need to change that a bit. Um,
Yeah.
Agriculture is beyond farming, right? Farming is a part of the agriculture. The flour mills of this world are agricultural companies after all has been said and done. The fuel industries, that is the makers of your indomies, are actually agricultural companies in the sense of it. If they're actually in the western countries, they will actually be classified under the agricultural sector, right?
Yeah.
Agriculture is beyond farming, and we need to be able to look at, like, be able to spread the word about that beyond farming part of agriculture. That's where much of the private investment that we hope to really rake in into the sector would actually come into. The farmers would really benefit if there are processing plants, more processing plants, more established, distribution networks, more warehouses, more farmers will actually distribute. Like I said, we don't have a food production problem. We can actually carry on with our food production the way it is and successfully feed ourselves. What we have is a food distribution problem, and distribution includes logistics, processing, and how it entirely gets refined all the way down to the consumer's table. So that's where we need to be looking at in terms of investment, heavy investment, and private
Yeah.
investment.
I 100% agree with you. And just hearing you share more in details in terms of the logistical aspect of it, I had never thought about it like, oh, okay, they should be sort of specially fabricated vans or trucks that are just designed specifically for the moving around of agricultural produce, maybe from farm to in terms of like the distribution of it. I never really thought about it like that. And I think, just like you made mention earlier on, I think like if there's a lot of marketing that goes around in terms of seeing agriculture and the various value chains within it, I don't think that a lot of investors would sort of maybe look beyond just fishery, poultry, piggery, and okay, there's also the logistic part of it that I can make investment into and then also get proceeds out of it. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm learning a lot today from this session as well.
Sure,
Wow.
sure.
Yeah, thank you. So my next question to you is, um, how can agripreneurs sort of move beyond just selling the raw produce and then tapping into value addition for higher profit?
Well, what question is that again? Can we go over the question again?
Okay, so the question is, from your own experience, what do you think that agripreneurs can do to sort of move beyond just selling raw produce and then tapping into value addition for higher profit? Because
Yeah, well,
sometimes, not that there's a lot of money being made from just selling your product raw, but with value addition, you can create multiple things out of one product. Like from one product, you can get like multiple things. So how can agripreneurs tap into that for like higher profit, like the value
well,
addition?
regarding that, I mean, we've established that value addition is actually the way for us to go in the country. The government itself is very interested in, you know, establishing more and encouraging more people to actually process, right? And so it's very, very important for us as, as a people, across the country to start to embrace value addition. Now, there's this misconception that value addition means that you are putting on a $1 million, processing plant in place. That really actually serves as a deterrent actually to
Yeah,
people. They're thinking, how would I go about this? I don't have that finance. Value addition can even be as much as cleaning, right?
mm,
Cleaning is, is minimal processing. If you look at it, this on that, cleaning, sorting, and grading are minimal processing,
mm,
right? It's not just, if you check the way that I mean apples are being brought into Nigeria from from Egypt, South Africa, Spain, Italy, and the likes. We find out that they're also exporting just raw, basic produce, but they've been able to improve its value by the way they've packaged it, right?
yes,
uh, by the way they've arranged it. There's minimal processing has been done. There are a number of things that actually was done. Sometimes those products are coated with food grade wax, right? That actually
yeah,
prevents, that extends the shelf life even further. Waxing itself, it's value addition. They didn't break their, an arm and a leg just to get a value added product into our country. No, they actually, what they did was, as much as possible, minimal processing. And this is where I think that, in the Nigerian agricultural space, we need to actually, start from, right? Okay, if you can actually process paddy rice into rice, perfect, right? If you have that resource, excellent. But I don't think that most agricultural entrepreneurs are actually able to do all of that yet. So what I advise is, look, if you have access to, a pepper farm, and you have, access to tons of pepper, instead of just, trading in just peppers alone, why not try to find a way to dry them, solar dry, oven dry, I try to convert them into dried peppers, because dried peppers, weight on weight, is more valuable than fresh peppers, right? That's value
yeah,
addition. And if you are able to get into, if you consider the export market, especially Southeast Asia, and the Indian subcontinent, you find out that there's a huge demand for these types of dry peppers, and it actually increases the value of what we've grown locally here.
yeah,
Value addition should be our, I mean, there's value addition that is being done on cocoa, even though it's not
yeah,
considered value. addition, but we need to take it a step further to, okay, why not let us, some form of processing here, minimal processing here, crushing, milling, all of those things done here, so that we can instead of exporting just cocoa beans, we're exporting cocoa powder, even at the very least. These are some of the things that we need to look at. Coffee, for instance. I mean, you'll be surprised that Nigeria exports coffee, right? We don't have actually access to coffee in Nigerian coffee, but we actually, if you go to Egypt, you will see Nigerian coffee on the streets, right? Instead of just start exporting our local coffee beans just that way, why don't let us establish roasters to actually roast it? Just establish a roastery for our coffee, and then it's better to export that way, right? Or even just do that way, and it adds more value. These are the things that we need to really do. Value addition is beyond just having to establish a processing plant. It also includes why establishing something that would add a layer of benefits to the consumer. A cleaned pepper, right, and a farm harvested pepper, they're not the same. We make food decisions of what to eat with our eyes, right? And
Yeah.
if you see, I mean, I wouldn't want to overflog this issue, right? But if you go to like some of these major, supermarkets or retailers, you find out that they just only packaged cucumber. They've only just shrink wrapped cabbage, but it's
Yeah.
value, right? Because they just did that. So value addition, is very, very important and can be very, very simple actually. Yeah.
Wow. I like how the various analogies that you used and just helping us understand that it's not only when it's fully processed that can be considered as value addition. Just merely cleaning and sorting and grading the produce in itself is also considered as value addition. And I like the analogy of the supermarket and supermarkets, because sometimes even the products that you get on the shelves there are still like the regular products you get from the very local market. But in this case, most of this product have been cleaned and then presented in a way and packaged in a way that it looks more appealing, and they charge higher prices for such products already. Oh, thank you so much for sharing more light on that. My very next question to you is, what do you think are like some of the strategies that farmers can use to access high value markets, including exports and urban retail chains?
Well, when it comes to marketing strategy, I for farmers and agripreneurs, I think that at the end of the day, we need to really adopt, you know, um, you know, other mainstream types of marketing, right? And
Okay.
learn from other sectors. One thing that agriculture, in my opinion, has it has absorbed itself from that profit making entity, and it has transformed itself into a donor receiving sector, and that is not focusing on efficiency. It's sad. It's a sad reality, and you find out that much of the focus for some agricultural entrepreneurs is to support farmers and prioritize supporting of farmers over serving customers. I think the focus should be really, we need to really stop some of those narratives. That is narrative of someone that's actually waiting for handouts, and try to
Yeah.
himself for actually growing and scaling businesses the way that other sectors have grown and scaled their own sectors. We need to be focused on, like, on the markets, right? We need to really have that market oriented approach to doing business, and to affect our marketing too. You need to be able to understand, maybe even much more, the challenges of the prospective industry that you're trying to sell to, or place that you're trying to sell to. So if you're trying to serve, like, if I'm trying to serve, like, the flour mills of Nigeria, for instance, right? I need to be able to understand, okay, these guys have a challenge, and that challenge is really consistency of supply of raw materials in order to actually support their large, industry that they've put in place. That's supposed to be how we are supposed to market ourselves, not only just saying that we want to support farmers to grow that. Yes, we want to support them to grow that, but to what benefit is the person that's going to be able to pay us to do this? What value are we adding to that? We need to really have a market focused approach. So I mean, well, there are several platforms. Thankfully, these days it's a lot easier to do marketing than it was, in a few years ago. So now, there's obviously LinkedIn marketing, which is very, very, very effective. There's obviously social media platforms that we can all leverage, but apart from the digital platforms, right? There are, B2B, B2B, interactions that need to be had. Like for instance, attending events and networking events. Those
Yeah.
are very critical to making or meeting prospective partners and clients, and that's also an avenue to actually market ourselves. And as agripreneurs, and then also there's also the perspective of us um being able to leverage cold calls. It's easier to really find information online and be able to do cold callings and cold lead generations, and really try to convert all of that to uh, business for ourselves. I really actually think that there's more opportunities out there. We're in a very technologically integrated world. I think that rather than just only spending technology focus on the production side of things, I think we need to also take it to the non-production parts of our businesses.
Hmm. Fantastic, fantastic. I like the way you talked about this point, just highlighting that in terms of the narrative that we've had of agriculture, we sort of need to make a shift from just being recipients of grants from donors, but also thinking about how we can actively serve customers. And that's really good. That's really good. I think that there's a lot of reorientation and sort of like a mindset shift that needs to happen within the agricultural sector in itself. So my very next question is then around the subject matter of financing, which is also something that a lot of agripreneurs or farmers sort of struggle with, whether it's financing for getting inputs or financing for scaling their enterprise. So my question at this time is, what financing options or governance initiative exists to sort of support post-harvest infrastructure and agribusiness growth?
Well, I mean, there are several, right? I
Okay.
just list a few that has really worked for us, in the past. So, there is a growing investment community around agriculture now,
Okay.
and that's a good thing, right? Sadly, there's been issues in the past. The agricultural sector has been very notorious, to be to be a terrible sector for investors. But
Yeah.
it's being corrected now, thankfully, right? But I'll say that there are grants available, like with grants are available. However, I think that that's one of the parts that really stops us from building viable businesses, right? And so we should
Hmm.
explore more competitive financing, like working with financial institutions to actually get ourselves capitalized. And thankfully there are investments for the agricultural sectors that are at single digits.
Okay.
Fully, you can get to access that, because it's always very tough to access some of those things, at that level, and at that single digit level, right? But they notwithstanding exist. There's also this growing diaspora interest, to su- supporting agriculture in Africa. I know that you know the we've been advising a number of diaspora Africans diaspora into how to actually strategically invest in, in Nigeria, in Africa, and what exactly to do, and how to really maximize their investment. So the diaspora network is very important. If you can get into any, it would really serve that interest very, very well. There are other several things that are also, there are also several, what's it called, several other finance, alternative finance. They know that there are alternative finance banks now that would not just only lend you money, but would actually, either procure equipment for you, procure assets for you, and then, I think those ones are even more helpful because you get to have a partner as a
Yeah.
financial institution. It's best to always have a partner as a financial institution because they have a stake in it. They're not just looking from their dashboard and saying, "Where's our money this month?" No, they are part of the, so they know, and they can even provide advice, advisory. So for now, I think those are the, the ones that I've explored and can really confidently talk about. But there are several other, more. I mean, their advanced level, options like raising bonds. For instance, I know that there's a, a big agricultural company in Nigeria that's been doing that as a way of financing themselves. There are a number of other sophisticated, instruments out there, but these are the ones that I'm really confident to speak about at this time.
Mm, fantastic, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I think you touched a bit about on my next question, with it, which is along the lines of partnership. From your own experience, what would you say? How would you sort of put it that? Uh, how can the partnership between farmers, agripreneurs, policymakers, and investors sort of drive innovation within the post-harvest management system? How do you see
Uh,
that partnership?
I think that at the end of the day, if we all, I say we all, I mean, are going to actually be successful in this agricultural space, it's going to be by partnerships, right? Because there's so many challenges that one organization cannot fit in, which
Yes.
is the partnership can only work if we have the mind of, um, focusing on doing what we can do best and outsourcing the rest. Sadly, that's not
Mm,
been the case. The farmer wants to be a marketer, a transporter, a you know a farmer wants to run an e-commerce platform while farming. All those type of funny ideas, right? Farmer wants to be able to transport his own produce by himself from maybe Abuja to Lagos without considering that there's a, reverse logistics cost to doing all of that. There's just so I mean I really don't blame people. It's really been hard, really, um, um, trusting and relying on, quote, partners, in the agricultural space. People can really mess you up, big time. But it still remains the fact that, we need to be able to have people specialists, right? In that specialize in sectors of the value chain. For me, for instance, we specialize, in the logistics, part of things. We help people, with, items, move it from one place to the other using cold logistics, dry trucking, etc. That's what we specialize in doing. And as much as possible, we fight the temptation to really extend into other place because, it will really erode our business in that sense. So we rather outsource. We rather partner with several other people to actually get the job done. And I think that partnerships is what has, really, I mean, a factory, a rice mill needs to be able to partner with like a farmer group, right, to produce. They
yeah.
have to be skin in the game alongside with them, right? Not just leaving the farmers to say, when you are producing, you bring it to us. No, you wouldn't see anything to buy. Your factory is shut down, and that's what has happened. For most parts of Kano and the northern parts that have established rice mills, they just let the farmers to themselves and say, "You guys go and figure it out. When you have figured it out, come back, we'll buy it from you." Yeah, you have to have that skin in the game. Yeah, of course, sometimes when things go south, of course, you get to take it from doing that. But overall the advantages really surpasses that disadvantage. So we need really to really consider partnership, but with the mind that we should actually focus on what we can do best and then look for suitable partners for the rest.
Hmm. I like how you put it. Well, in my mind, I think of it that sometimes most of these farmers or agripreneur, especially if they're like at their start out stages, they tend to want to do this a lot of things all by themselves because they're trying to minimize costs, the cost of production, and all those kinds of things. But however, like you highlighted, just having partners with you as you go along on the journey makes things much more easier because you're then able to then focus on the area that is your core expertise and have the other person focus on their core area of expertise as well. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So my next question at this time uh, is in terms of policies, right? So, what are like the policies do you think that the government should sort of implement to help support sustainable agriculture uh, in Nigeria and also help with the reduction of food wastage?
Well, I think the policy of multiple taxation in multiple taxation in transit.
Mm,
Oh, transporting something from say Niger, for instance, all the way to Lagos. Let me just even say Kwara. If you had a big truck, you're going to have to. You need about 100 and something plus permits and papers and all those local governments. Yes, from that's. I don't think that you if you want to transport something from from Lagos to New Zealand, which is the most remote country in the world. I don't think you need that much papers, but you actually need it to move something from, maybe say, Kwara to Lagos, right? That's that internal, fragmentation is terrible. It's killing. It affects one thing that affects food prices the most, and one of the least talked about parts is the cost of fossil fuel. Um,
mm,
the effect of cost of fossil fuel. It's logistics. In short, it's very very significant. At least it contributes 30 to 40% of the price of food.
mm,
So if we can, and transporters will essentially charge you based on all the stress that they are going to and multiple taxations. So food cost of transportation will increase, and the meaning is that your food prices will increase. So if we really are serious about making food affordable, we need to move all these barriers. I would actually actively want to move for the removal of this. I mean, these barriers to trade, and just
mm,
allow people to freely move around. It's one country after all. We're not even trading with Ghana. Imagine if we are doing that with Ghana. You know how many papers you have? Literally, maybe close to 1,000, just because you want to move from Nigeria to Ghana. So we need to be able to fix our internal, taxation system to really improve food prices. That another thing is we need to be able to fix our cooperatives. All right, I'm writing a book. It's coming out. We're launching it sometimes later this month. It's called "The Lie That Broke Africa." All right, why small order farming can actually not, lead our agricultural revolution, or food sustainability. And the idea is that much of the farmers' growing systems are in silos. We have lots of smallholder farmers doing their own thing on maybe one plot on 1 acres, and that type of farming is never going to produce any substantial reward because the economies of scale is really fighting back against it. So we need policies to be able to help our cooperatives or incentivize farmers and growers to form cooperatives. We need to bring that back because with cooperatives come economic scale. They can buy together, they can hire tractors together, which will actually significantly bring down the cost of production and help them become more prompt. Those two things are, the major things that I really would advise in terms of, um, policy.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I did personally, I didn't know that you needed that much.
Oh, you
Uh,
need. Oh, you need.
yeah,
Yeah, you
I
need.
didn't know that you needed that
You need.
much.
They will check
Wow,
you one by.
within the country, within the country, it's not like that's.
Yeah, you need.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
And
it's
now,
terrible.
I think about it from the production end of things, and I now see why the impact is then felt in terms of the pricing. Because there
Yeah,
are just a lot of things that just a lot of things that are ongoing,
yeah,
that are not so much like visible to the consumer, and they're like wondering, isn't it just you're just producing it and just bringing it here? But
yeah,
in terms of producing from where it was produced down to where you are, there are lots of things that have gone on behind the scene that are very expensive. Oh my god.
yeah.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. This session has
It's very.
been quite, yeah, it has been quite educative for me as well. Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you for sharing. Wow. So
thank
my,
you,
my last question at this time to you
thank you.
is, you're welcome. Is what are like the key steps do you think that farmers, agripreneurs, or policymakers listening to this, or that will listen to the replays subsequently, can take to reduce post-harvest loss? Mind you, there are three. They're like three
Three
people.
people.
Like you have the
Yeah.
farmer, the
So
agripreneurs, and
yeah,
policymakers. So, what do you
yeah,
think that the steps that they can start taking to help in terms of reducing post-harvest losses, and then tend to increase productivity, productability, like profitability? Sorry.
yeah. So for the farmers, right, I would say this is that the farmer usually always think that post harvest challenges does not affect them, but it does at the end of the day because the way that agricultural food is being sold is that the farmer takes it to the market and then hands it over to someone to sell on their behalf. Now, if they do not pay attention to some of these post harvest mitigation tips, what will happen is that that person will struggle to actually sell their product and it will not last longer and they will lose money because farmers don't usually always get paid until the produce is sold. So the well, I'll say pay attention to pre-cooling. Never pack your produce um, directly into the bag upon harvesting. Allow it to cool down. Pre-cooling very important to save everybody. Don't harvest in the rain. Don't harvest when it is hot. Try to look for the coldest and driest times to harvest your produce. As much as possible, pay attention to how your produce is loaded and offloaded. Right? Very critical for you to help. And then if you can, because not everybody can use plastic crates, because what it does is that it helps you mitigate the effect of stacking, which obviously has to do when you're also packaging. Try to pack in if you're using a box, if you're using a crate, try to pack tightly as possible. Why? Because in transit, there's usually always movement here and there.
Yeah.
So if you pack closely, what happens is you give the produce space to move around more, and the impact can be more on each other. So pack tightly, it reduces that effect. So there's several other things, right? Um, if you really want to learn more actually about how to really mitigate some of this as a farmer, you can actually follow us on Post Harvest Africa, right? We're sharing tips on to really help um, value chain actors to actually do their work more. And then also for agripreneurs, depending on what sector you are actually playing, it's very important that you know that you can't do everything alone, and you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't think so. Sadly, our Nigerian mentality dictates to us that we should be local governments of ourselves, but it's counterproductive because and we need to be able to really look for out to outsource or partner with certain people in certain areas in that. To mitigate post harvest loss, I still think that we need to have a market focused approach, right? And we need to be able to, shorten the gap as much as possible between how we are receiving our produce and how it is being converted into value for whoever we are serving. And for the policy um, people, I strongly believe that you find this video. Um, Please note that we do not have a food production problem. yes, we need to ramp up our food production problem. Um, Capacity, yes, is very, very important. But much more important is that we need to actually focus on distribution, how to ensure that our distribution is more efficient and we don't lose product. We need to look into other transportation ways. If road is not working, we have a river,
Wow.
rivers that connects this country. What are we doing about that? We need to have rail transport. It really would save, you know, cut down on transportation costs significantly. Some of these things are where we need to really be thinking as policy holders. You can always find me at its_continental, at its_continental on any of the audio platforms. I'll be really eager to really, share my thoughts and how we've been progressing. This and how can actually make this a better place for everyone. I appreciate your time, Pastor Ogwe. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Continental. Thank you so much.
We served at Angels at the same time as well.
Oh yeah, and so the interesting thing is, I think that you are the okay, yeah. I think you're the second person I'm interviewing that sort of has like an agricultural background, right?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Third person. There was Jesper and there was Elvis. Jesper had gone to UI. Elvis
yeah,
went to Elvis went to Bowen. I studied agriculture and economics at BIU. And so
okay,
the only reason I wanted to go to Plato at the time was because I've heard so much about, Plato. I've heard like, oh, they do this, they do that. And so I wanted to witness it firsthand.
yeah,
And I wanted to witness it firsthand. So I'm saying all this to say that okay, I think that there's hope because typically most of the persons that I have interacted with that are doing agriculture at a very large scale, some of them they stumbled into it. Some
yep,
of them they it wasn't something like oh they had gone to uni to study it
yeah,
and all that
yeah,
even looking back, I think about some of my professors in uni. Like most of them, they've taught this thing for like maybe over decades, and none of them actually practice. And
hmm,
it's just it's just wild. But having to see that you studied agriculture and then you're practicing, and you're also practicing in like more like an unconventional area, it's
yeah,
really, really beautiful. It's really beautiful. And looking through your bio, you talked about there's a lot of work you're doing around capacity building, particularly within the post-harvest loss spaces. So my next
yeah.
question to you would be, do you have like courses, trainings, seminars, workshops that people could maybe subscribe to or sign up for and be part of it? Because sometimes people do, when they watch the video, they like to like connect with any of the guests and if they have such opportunities and want to take advantage of it. So do you have such opportunities? And if yes, how can our viewers and listeners take advantage of such?
Absolutely. So we do have those. I would say that you follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, right? So that you can be updated with more. You can also check our website, postharvestafrica.com. You can check us out on all the social media platforms at, Post Harvest Africa. It's really interesting because we will be rolling out several things. I also want you to follow our honor initiative. It's a business membership organization, and that was started by the former president, and Mr. Sawyer, and the former president of the African Development Bank, right? It's called the Produce Export Development Alliance, right? It was formerly the Agricultural Fresh Growers and Exporters Association of Nigeria. It's actually us, working together with all member um, organizations to actually, grow our export capabilities, especially in terms of export culture, across, Africa. So you can follow us on that at peda.africa on all of on platforms, and we'll actually be able to. And you can also check our website peda.africa. It will actually help us to be able to keep you updated with all our latest programs and lots much more. All right. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And everyone
Thank you.
listening on the call, you want to be part of that, please just head out to the Instagram handles that were shared, the website, and just connect with Mr. Continental, and then so you're able to take advantage of this numerous opportunity. And so just listening to the take home for me today, listening to you, is just realizing that there's even within a particular value chain in agriculture, there's still like a sub value chain within it.
Okay. Exactly. Exactly.
Like it is so it was just mind blowing for me. You know, when
Yeah.
I think about the supply chain within it, I just think about okay, it's just transportation, but just listening today on this conversation, I'm thinking okay, there's a kind of transportation, there's a kind of logistic. There's also you just mentioning about what are we doing about our waterways, what are we doing about our
Yeah.
railways.
What are we
That's
doing?
true. Because the
Yeah.
last person I interviewed last week is into export, has been in the export space, um, particularly value added products for export in the last close to like a decade. And it was also mentioning this whole logistics thing. And it was saying at some point when he started, he had to, travel down to those regions, go meet the farmers. And so for some days he would have to lay on the truck moving from the north down to the west because he's in Lagos. And it was like some days the truck would get stuck. And I
Yeah.
thought about it, like, okay, can we not use sea? Then he then mentioned at some point in his exportation business, there were some produce that they could no longer move by water. They had to then move them by air. And so that also increased like the cost. I'm like, okay,
Mm.
locally, what stops us from actually moving products by air? The cost
Yeah.
again, the
Yeah.
cost.
Mm.
I think about these things
It's
and I'm like, I'm just thinking about what you shared with when you talked about what policymakers can actually do to create sort of an ease in business. Is what if these tariffs are sort of reduced or minimized, and there's like a special cost as long as you're within you're within the agricultural space, regardless of the value chain where you're playing in. There should be some sort of special tariff that you get in terms of how because of the kind of business that you're doing.
Mhm.
But anyways, thank you for just sharing, and also I have learned a lot from this session today, not just the audience as well. Thank you once again,
Thank you,
Mr.
man.
Mental. It's been such a
Thank you
delight
so
just
much.
having you on the podcast.
Yes. 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 Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be